In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian's Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is Drew Hill, joined as always by Chris Herrington. We are in the final stretch of the regular season for the Memphis Grizzlies, who are already eliminated from the playoffs. We have plenty of draft stuff to talk about today. I think Chris and I will get into how we're beginning to sort some of these players.
We're in the this too shall pass portion of this particular Grizzlies regular season.
We'll talk a little bit about the games because I think we should. But
I did I luck into? I was there for a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, you were, and I missed Chicago. I missed that game in full, so I'll get the recap from you.
Right,
and then the game on Monday night was
not so much.
We do have a Grizzlies game tonight on Wednesday night. We will see how that one goes.
Glamour team in town.
Yes. So by the time
the Knickerbockers.
So by the time you are listening to this, that game will probably be over. I mean, may not have started yet if you're listening on Wednesday afternoon, but we'll discuss the last few games. By the way, thank you if you came down to Wiseacre Brewing downtown last night on Tuesday for our sports roundtable. It was really good to talk to so many people who just had questions about the Grizzlies and do the roundtable with our Tiger staff and talk a little Tigers, talk a little Grizzlies. And I try to be as knowledgeable as I can on both things.
You were pulling double duty, man.
I was pulling double duty a little bit, but that's okay. It was a great time, and Chris, you got some tough questions. I think Jeff gave you the hard ones.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. Thanks for standing in there on some of those.
I tried to pass the microphone to Sam Hardiman, who was in the audience. He would not take it.
No.
No, it was a good time. Great weather, great hang. You know, in addition to the formal event or whatever, we had to hang out and just talk to people before and after. I got to get some
I was going to say, you left out great pizza.
I tried to get other people to stick around, but a few people stuck around. We had some pizza going on. I had not been betting a little bit, so tried new pizzas for me. There was a andouille shrimp situation, and there was a chorizo with like a pepper cream sauce situation. Those are both pretty good.
Yeah, they were good. I preferred the chorizo, but I liked them both.
Yeah. I still like the Thud Butt best. It was sold out. That's their signature.
Yeah, I don't know if I've had that. But I do think Little Betty, one of, if not the best pizza in the city.
Good pizza, good beer,
spot.
good atmosphere, good hang.
So it was a good time, and thanks to everybody.
And hopefully we'll do some more public kind of stuff next season. I think I'd like that. I think you'd probably like that. I know our sports editor would. We'll have to see what makes sense.
Yeah, maybe we can try to do
maybe some watch parties. You know, maybe Natalie organize a live podcast recording. I know she would love that.
She's shaking her head. No live podcast. I don't know. You never say never.
She's itching to do that.
Never say never. Well, you never know. But anyway, it was a good time, and it's always fun to talk to the people that support us. So thank you to those folks that came down there and donated and hung out. Onward to the Grizzlies. Before we get to draft stuff, we have a couple games to discuss. Can let's start with your game, Chris, because it happened earlier on Saturday against Chicago. We don't really need to discuss Friday's game, but let's talk Saturday against Chicago. The Grizzlies win.
So the good thing, whether the win was a good thing or not, is subject to interpretation. The good thing about the game was like Cedric Howard came out and had a game, and he has not been having a lot. He didn't have one in the next game. He's been pretty quiet, and he's also missed some time with injury and personal reasons. His minutes have been lower just because of the way the Grizzlies are playing, and he's been pretty quiet offensively. And I think maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. I think this is going to cost him first team All-Rookie. I think he's going to end up being second team All-Rookie because of the way the Grizzlies season has ended, and because the way Ace Bailey has sort of finished hot. I think that's going to cost Cedric Howard first team All-Rookie. It probably shouldn't, because he was one of the four best rookies back when like the games mattered, right? But he has not had a big game, and that was a good game just to remind fans on the way out the door, look at what this guy can do. It was, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it was like 29 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals.
A lot of shot attempts.
Yeah, season high steals, a season high 19 field goal attempts. Was scoring at like all 3 levels, was making plays. The big sort of go ahead bucket late was they went to him in the post, which is what's interesting. He talked about that after the game about being comfortable in that area, and that could be a look for the Grizzlies going forward. Like when you're running offense, in some kind of final possession kind of situation, they went to him in the post. He had a mismatch, drew the double team, kicked it out to Walter Clayton for the open 3, who made the 3. And then the end of that game was almost an all-time quote-unquote tank game because the Grizzlies had the lead. I think they had a 1-point lead. Howard's inbounding the ball from the sideline. He throws the pass into Gigi Jackson a little too high. It tips off of Gigi's fingertips. The Bulls get it. They're coming down for a layup to win the game at the buzzer, which if you wanted the Grizzlies to lose for draft reasons, would have been the best possible game because you get the great Set Coward game and you just pull out the loss at the end. Coward recovers, makes a good defensive play to break up a 2-on-1 break, force Trey Jones, not force him, but, sort of get him, provoke him to pass the ball. And then even though the Bulls made the shot, the clock had expired. It was confusing for me because I'd gotten up. I was, sitting courtside, but frankly, I needed to use the bathroom. So I got up at a timeout with about 5 minutes left, went to use the bathroom and came back and just stood in the tunnel, sort of basically stood courtside, watching the last 3 minutes of the game. But where I was standing, people are standing up. I'm standing sort of behind that backboard, so I can't really see when the clock lights up. Probably could have seen on the other end, but I wasn't looking down there. I couldn't see the referees at all. So if they called no good, I didn't see it. So I wasn't sure what had happened. I thought the Grizzlies had just lost the game because I saw Sexton make the layup. And on the ESPN app, like it clocked it initially as a Bulls win before it was waved off. And so that was quite a finish. It may be a costly one. We'll see for the Grizzlies draft lottery standings, but it was at least a memorable game.
Yeah, that was a wild finish. And I think from TV, it was pretty clear almost immediately that the basket didn't count. But
some things are much more clear on TV when we're in the chaos of the game down there on the floor.
I will say, though, that was a win that pushed New Orleans back underneath Memphis in the reverse standings.
That could cost the Grizzlies a slot, a spot in the lottery standing.
The Pelicans now have lost 5 in a row, 4-6 in their last 10, but have lost 5 in a row, doing Memphis no favors here.
Here's my thing though about I thought it was unlikely the Grizzlies would just lose out for the rest of the season, and home against Chicago was the most likely win on the schedule, and frankly, they barely won it.
Yeah. The difference between the 7 slot and the reverse standings, which is where New Orleans is now, which they're still trying to win because they don't have their first round pick.
They're at least not trying to lose. It's not clear how much because they can't make the play in anymore. They're sort of in limbo. There's no value to New Orleans from winning or losing at this point.
You might as well try to be competitive though if you're New Orleans. But the difference between the 8 spot and the 7 spot in terms of your chances at a top 4 pick is almost 6%. It's 5.7%.
But I wonder if New Orleans would shut down Zion.
6.7%. Yeah.
They have guys who have injury stuff with Zion and DeJounte Murray. Now that they're officially eliminated from play-in, I do wonder if they would shut those guys down just to, because of injury risk.
Here's the thing about New Orleans. They have a favorable schedule the rest of the way. And if it just really depends on how committed the Grizzlies are to the cause here in terms of trying to lose the rest of these games.
Based on this most recent game, they'd be pretty committed.
So New Orleans has Portland, games at Portland, at Sacramento, home against Orlando, home against Utah, at Boston, at Minnesota to conclude the season. We'll see how much those Boston and Minnesota games matter in the last 2 games of the regular season because that may open the door to a win. I will go out on a limb and predict that the Pelicans will win at least 1 more game to conclude the season, maybe 2. And again, the Grizzlies, it really depends on how committed they are. And we saw on Monday night a game in which it was tied at 91 going into the 4th quarter. Cedric Coward played like 9 minutes of the 4th quarter, and Walter Clayton played a big chunk of the fourth quarter, but he has not been good.
Right.
He still was a first-round draft pick last year. I mean, the rest of the minutes in the quarter were made up of Adama Ball, Tyler Burton, Deke Giroux. It was a lot of
in the Chicago game that they won. Adama Ball, who none of us had heard of until that day. Adama Ball was signed that day. Dude played 28 minutes in that game. I mean, if you're going to play the guy 28 minutes when he has just stepped foot on the floor, what else do you want?
The other thing here is that Jemai Meshack against the Suns played 37 minutes, which honestly, I think that only 11 times this season when I looked it up, a Grizzlies player has played more than 35 minutes in a game. So that's only happened 11 times this season.
Playing 37 minutes behind the mask.
Yeah, behind the mask. That's right. The mask is just one with Jemai Meshack now. He went and did his pregame shoot-around media interview and almost forgot to take the mask off. And so we got a good laugh out of that. He's like, I forget I'm even wearing this thing. It's now part of his identity. But he played 37 minutes. I think only 11 times this season that's happened. Some of them are like Cedric Coward, but there's been over the course of this end of season, sputter to the finish, like you're getting a Ryan Rupert jumping up with like a 38-minute night. You're getting Jemai Meshack jumping up with a 37-minute night. It just it's changed, which player is going to be the heavy minutes guy from game to game. And that was a heavy Jemai Meshack game. And they tried to use him on Booker, and he still had a great game. But it was I found that notable. 37 minutes for Jemai Meshack while everybody else played about 20. And then they played Cam Spencer, Gigi Jackson, basically the rest of their starting lineup 2 minutes each in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, come on. Game's tied at 91. You're making a shift at the end of the game. That's the point that we're in the season. And that's why, and everybody's watching the reverse standings closely. So
you think, based on your detailed analysis of the remaining Pelican schedule a couple minutes ago, the Grizzlies currently 8th. You think they're likely to finish 7th? Yes. That would be your guess. Yes. I think that's probably most likely.
I think they'll find a way to finish 7th, and the Grizzlies.
I don't think they're going to get up to 6th. I don't think the Mavs are going to allow it.
No, and you look at the rest of the Grizzlies schedule. The winnable games that remain really are Milwaukee and Utah, and then
both on the road, right?
Both on the road. The games get weird to conclude the regular season, especially on the final day of the regular season. So, you never know who Houston might be playing in that last game, but if they've made the playoffs and they're going to be the 6 or whatever, and they're not going to move up or down. But I mean, if you want to ensure that you're going to finish 7th, you almost need to look at the rest of the schedule and say we can't win any more than one game.
It's true.
It's true. Because it doesn't feel like the Pelicans are going to win a ton. So I think they'll get one. I think the Pelicans will get one, maybe 2. But if you win more than one game, you're in danger of losing 6% on your top 4 lottery odds.
And I believe I think this is right. I have not looked this up. I probably should have before I say it on a podcast. So I think this is right. When you're talking about playoff standings, the tiebreakers start with head to head, and it goes. I think with the lottery, tiebreaker is strictly coin flip. Strictly coin flip.
I don't know I
think that's true.
So anyway,
85%.
It's going to be a tight finish in the reverse standings here to the end of the season, and it starts tonight with the Grizzlies against the New York Knicks. I like the Knicks' chances to get a win tonight, given that they are definitely trying to win and get better playoff positioning. Before we talk draft, do you want to just go around the league real quick? I mean, it does feel like...
Well, the other part of this, which is around the league but relevant to the Grizzlies, we've been watching this Orlando stuff.
Yeah.
And there's sort of mixed messages on that. I think the good news on the Orlando thing as I think it's fairly safe that they are going to be in the play-in. Because for a while they had popped their nose above the play-in line, and they've been pushed back down. There's now a 2-game gap between Toronto at 6 and Orlando at 8. Given how few games there are to go, I don't think that closes. So I think they're going to be safely in the play-in, which is then becomes a question of where they are 7 through 10, and it's tight. They're at 8th right now. There's only half a game up on Miami at 9 and Charlotte at 10. So a lot of volatility there.
Okay. I'm looking at the remaining strength of schedules as we talk about this, because this was something I wanted to get into. So Charlotte has a very difficult schedule remaining. They have Pistons, Celtics, Knicks, Timberwolves, and Suns still on the schedule.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Their only gimme is the Pacers.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that's probably a good thing for the Grizzlies, because you want Charlotte to have to play Orlando in the play-in. So the ideal scenario for the Grizzlies is Orlando 9, Charlotte 10.
Yeah, you would like Orlando in that 9-10 game, so that one loss would be enough to get them out.
Right.
Yeah.
So Orlando's looking at 7 games remaining. They have Pistons, and it feels like Cade Cunningham is going to be coming back pretty soon. They've got Pistons, Celtics, Timberwolves, Hawks. And then they have 3.
They're at home against the Hawks tonight. That's an important game for the Grizzlies.
Important game, yep. And then you have 3 games against lower level competition, 2 games in which should be layups for Orlando, although they did lose to the Pacers. You still have the Mavs and the Bulls, and then a game against the Pelicans. And like you said, we don't know what the Pelicans are going to do to conclude the season. So you need to hope Orlando loses those difficult games, starting with the Hawks tonight. You still got the Pistons, Celtics, and Timberwolves. And then you need somebody to step up between Philadelphia and Miami. Fortunately, Miami still has 2 games left against Washington, 2 games left against Toronto, Celtics, and Hawks.
If you could just get Orlando into that 9-10 game, even at home, they could lose to Charlotte in Orlando, and then they're out. But even if they win that game, they still got to go on the road and win another game to be in the playoffs.
To me, how many games back is Miami from Orlando right now?
Half a game.
Half a game. When you look at schedules, like the Sixers have 3 layup games. The Heat have 2 layup games. Like it feels like those are 2 important teams that you're cheering for to stay in front of Orlando.
Yeah.
You know, the schedules probably favor Orlando, but you need the Sixers or the Heat to jump up and pass them. And I think Charlotte's probably, given the fact that they have a really difficult schedule remaining, you know, they're probably likely to stay in the 9-10 range. So the hope is that somehow Orlando gets there too. Just if you look around the NBA right now and you're just like trying to find storylines, I think it's maybe being exhausted a little bit on the debate shows, but with so many teams tanking and like the playoff races feeling like they're not, exactly all that close outside of the East, play-in stuff, like 5 through 10 in the East, there's not all that much to talk about. But one of the things that continues to come up is the MVP conversation between SGA and Victor Wembanyama. And I vote in the ESPN straw poll. I know you do too, Chris.
Yep. Do we want to share votes? Did you vote?
Would you like to share your vote? Because let me
try to remember. I can pull up the text.
I had SGA first.
That's a spoiler. We were going to work up.
We were going to work up.
We can start at the top. I also had SGA first.
Because I think we're probably going to have the same 2 in 1 and 2, right? Wembanyama and SGA.
Yes, I had Wemby too, right?
So the debate right now is like which of those 2 players is deserving of the MVP. They've taken very different approaches. Wembanyama has publicly vouched for himself. SGA has taken a quiet route on this. And like, I, over history, have thought about the MVP from like more like when I have actually voted on the award, essentially my process for deciding who I'm going to vote for has been where I break them down into certain categories that I think matter. And then I rank the players that I might be considering 1 through 7. And then I have a point system, but I also include things beyond that. Like, who essentially was driving the most interest in the NBA? Like, who did I see the most of? Because I feel like that's value to the league.
Right.
And so I've considered things like that. And so I factored that into the point system too. And so long story short, I still have SGA number 1. And I do think it's mostly an offensive award. So I do consider more offensive stats than defensive stats. But based on eyeballs and pure impact, I think you could totally make the argument that Wembanyama is the most impactful player in the league. So it was actually a more difficult decision than I thought it was going to be. How about you?
I think with some of these awards, there tends to be a recency bias in the sense of like the all rookie we were talking about earlier. People tend to wait later in the season more than early in the season, and I think it should all be weighted sort of equally. So just over the totality of the season, I think SGA has been the best overall player. In terms of individual performance, in terms of team performance, in terms of availability. All these guys have sort of missed games. He's missed a little bit fewer games. So it was not, to me, it's not an avalanche in SGA's favor, but it was enough of a margin that I didn't sweat it too much on SGA versus Wemby.
Who did you have in the 3 through 5 spots behind?
So I had Jokic third.
Okay.
How about you?
I had Luka third.
Okay, I had Luka fourth. You had Jokic fourth.
I had Jokic fourth.
And then it's sort of pretty open in fifth. I think there's 2 or 3 guys you could go with. I went with Donovan Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go Jaylen Brown?
I went Jaylen Brown because the Celtics have been so much better this season than maybe
that was sort of the choice for me.
And I considered Donovan Mitchell, but I landed on Jaylen Brown there. Where do you think you would have had Cade Cunningham? That was one of the questions posed in the straw poll.
Well, the last time, I'm going to scroll back up here. The last time they did this, whenever that was, I had Cade third. And so if I think I did in this one.
I had Cade fourth and Wembanyama third.
Yeah. So in this one, I would have had, I don't know, I would have had him somewhere 3 through 5. At a minimum, he would have been fifth, but he may have been third for me still if he'd never gotten hurt. Interesting in terms of pivoting from the award stuff to general league stuff. Detroit's going to be the 1 seed in the East, and they're going to be the 1 seed that like nobody picks to get to the finals.
Yeah, because Boston looks so strong right now. And then also, I mean,
New York was a more popular preseason pick that I think some people will sort of stick with, the idea that they'll pick it up in the playoffs a little bit. Cleveland after Harden,
I'm going to pull up.
Any of those 4 teams could get to the finals out of the East.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I'm going to pull up here and see recency, who's been playing the best. So last 2 weeks, let's go based on last 2 weeks.
All 4 of them are 7-3 in their last 10.
Yes. So Detroit, even without Cade Cunningham, in point differential, it's been the number 4 defense, number 15 offense over the last 2 weeks. So they are significantly actually in front of New York. New York is 5th on the season in terms of point differential per cleaning glass, 17th over the last 2 weeks. So, and one of the things also is like Jalen Duren has been so awesome this season for Detroit. Like I honestly had to think about him 5th on the MVP stuff for a second.
He should definitely be on an all NBA team. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so Detroit, even without Cade Cunningham, still looking, I think you're right. They're going to be, they're not going to be a team that a lot of people pick to win the East, but they have still been very, very good, even without Cade Cunningham. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I don't think there's anything else really storylines in terms of stuff that we would have any interest in talking about.
Yeah, I'm ignoring the Lakers getting better. We can move on.
Yeah, the Lakers getting better. Okay, let's move on and talk some draft stuff. We're going to just talk about the early process of sorting some of these players out. But first, let's take a break for a message from our sponsor.
Want to make a big impact without getting lost in a big system? Join Youth Villages to be a force for families while becoming part of one. Help make positive changes on a national scale, one community at a time. It takes a family to transform lives. Start with yours. Apply now at youthvillages.org/careers.
So before we do that, Chris, before we get into our how we're sort of sorting out the board right now, let's talk Tankathon. We haven't done our Tankathon spin yet. Right now, we don't have the benefit of Orlando being part of this spin because they're currently outside of the top 14.
But in this spin, Miami starts at 13th and Charlotte is 14th. So you can imagine Orlando in one of those spots if one of those teams jumps up.
Okay, let's go ahead and do it.
All right, I'm spinning. It's slow spinning.
Okay.
Oh, there's a lot of movement on my board.
I don't think we're gonna like mine, so let's go with yours first.
I think mine is a mixed bag, because the number one pick in my spin for the second year in a row would be the Dallas Mavericks. Boo to that. The number two pick, a team that is perhaps the most artificial tanker in the league right now, the Utah Jazz at number two. Don't like that. But would you accept Dallas and Utah 1-2 if it means your Memphis Grizzlies have the third pick, which is what my spin popped up?
Yes. Yep. I think in a draft where we both feel strongly about the top four options,
you get one of them.
I think you would get one of them. Yeah, no, I would sacrifice that. I have the Grizzlies moving back one spot to 9. I have Indiana first, Brooklyn second. Good.
Yeah.
Then I have Sacramento third and Golden State jumping 7 spots to 4th. No, thank you.
Yeah.
And then you've got Washington, Utah, Dallas, Atlanta via New Orleans, and Memphis at number 9. So didn't have Miami jump up, didn't have Charlotte jump up. 2 teams that we were like, hey, well, maybe that would be the Magic in that spot. But still very relevant to the Grizzlies, lottery odds. So that's coming, by the way, Mother's Day. So go celebrate your mom and then get locked in for the lottery, because that is when the lottery is happening this year and most years. Okay. Have you started to create like a full big board yet for yourself?
It's still in flux, but yes.
So I am not quite to the point where I'm like, I have really sorted the players out in a way that I feel comfortable of like giving a top 20.
Right.
But I have started to sort of separate players. Do you have tiers? Can we start with your tiers and then maybe I can play off of that a little
about
bit?
50 players divided into about 7 tiers.
Okay. So,
and I feel better about the composition of the tiers than I do the rankings within the tiers. But even the composition of the tiers is subject to change between now and the draft.
Okay. Let's hear your first tier.
So my first 2 tiers are pretty conventional, and then maybe it changes a little bit after that. I think the top 4 guys are the top 4 guys in terms of upside. The level of production relative to their age and relative to their size. You're not doing small guards with any of these dudes. So I think the top 4 is the right top 4 in Peterson, Wilson, DeBanza, Boozer. So I think that's the first tier. And I'm very torn. I don't have super strong opinions about the order of that tier. I change my mind a lot.
I also have those 4 players as the first tier. So part of my process has been to just like, I basically have started by breaking down more and organizing some of the more all-encompassing impact statistics, not going strictly off of 3-point percentage or whatever, but like BPM, BPR, NBA efficiency, average game score.
The Vorps and Schmorps, as Zach Lowe says.
Exactly. That's essentially how I've started to organize these players. And I've kind of gone back and forth and compared that to the Grizzlies draft history, where I've also organized every player that the Grizzlies have either signed or drafted since Zach Kleiman took over in 2019 to calculate the average for those things. And I've organized the players to say, okay, these players meet the average for each individual statistic. And that has sort of helped guide me in terms of creating some of these tiers and starting to organize some of these players. I don't know if that's the right strategy, to be honest with you, because as we discussed yesterday, that maybe the way that the Grizzlies start thinking about this draft is different than the way that they've started thinking about previous drafts, given that they may be more willing to swing on high upside guys versus some of the more safe picks.
I think that could be, and maybe it's a false choice to some degree, right?
Maybe.
Some guys you think are safe maybe or have the upside, but I think they're going to have foundational stars. It's not clear that that's what Coward and Edey are going to be You got to get them somehow, you know?
Yeah. But I think that also, I bring that up in part because I think it kind of applies to the top tier that we just talked about there.
Right.
Because I think, and this was a question that we got, again, shout out to the people that came down to our event last night. This is a question we got about Cam Boozer, where, you know, we were asked about our favorite draft prospects, and I have felt really strongly about Cam Boozer, because I think some of these, as I started to organize some of this stuff, his impact numbers are off the charts in college. So that would make sense that you would feel strongly about a player like that. And I think if you were trying to organize players and figure out what types of players the Grizzlies might be interested based on previous draft history, Boozer you would have to consider, given how strong some of the impact statistics are. And like the Grizzlies have drafted a lot of guys like that. Like Xavier Tillman was clearly one of those players. Brandon Clark was one of those players. So I don't doubt that I think the Grizzlies would probably like to add a player like Cam Boozer, but the upside may not be quite as high as a player like Debansa or Peterson or even Wilson to some degree.
Right.
And so do you have any thoughts on that? Like the safe picks versus the upside picks and how it applies even within the top four?
Yeah, I feel like Debansa is probably the safe. He's both the safest guy and the guy that has really high upside, right? I don't love his game aesthetically, like for me, in terms of like what I like in basketball. I'm not as into his style of play, the ball dominant, you know, I'm creating ISO shot kind of thing. I like the more varied skills of really the other three players more than Debansa. But Debansa, I think you get both the safety of like, it's hard to imagine this guy not being really good with the potential for the high upside. So I feel like he's probably a likely number one pick in this draft. The more I watch Boozer, the more concerned I get. And that's sort of a pattern. The more people watch Boozer, the more concerned they get. And that's certainly been true for me. I feel like Peterson is probably the most talented player in this bunch. There's just so many questions. You have to reach a level of comfort.
Peterson and Wilson are kind of in that same boat. Like I aesthetically, Wilson's game is way more appealing to me than some of these other players. But he also now has multiple injuries.
So the injuries there's two different. There's an injury on each hand, and they seem to be minor injuries. There's two things though. One, a writer I've been reading a lot lately on the NBA has made the point that injuries are a good predictor of future injuries, right? That's sort of a thing. And because they're both hand injuries, I don't know how he got them, but when you watch him play, like it's just dunks and blocks, constant dunks and blocks, which are exciting, but that's a lot of impact on your hands, you know? So you wonder if it's the kind of thing where the high impact style makes someone more injury prone, which the Grizzlies have just gone through with John Morant.
And if you're springy the way that Caleb Wilson is too, and you're going to be
super springy
up off the floor and in the air, we've learned that can be dangerous too.
There is that.
So, you know,
he's got the most get after it on defense, which I like of those guys.
But I've had a hard time as of you trying to sort the players out because the Peterson stuff is just a little worrisome to me because we talked last week about, you know, the Grizzlies' efforts to get Ja back on track and all that stuff. And like, I don't like mystery. I don't want mystery.
Yeah, no
more mystery.
I'd be very dangerous about not dangerous. I'd be very reticent about it.
Right.
I'd have to get comfortable, and I don't know whether they can.
I don't want players with mystery surrounding them on the Grizzlies, given how, you know, much of a pain it has been over the last 3 years dealing with that sort of stuff. And then I think I agree. I think Debansa has a high ceiling and is obviously really productive right now. You know, I think he has the potential to be a much better defender than he is right now.
Yeah, no, that's a question, right?
But that is certainly a question there. Okay. I think that when you move on to the next like tier, as I started, you know, sorting through some players, you can really open the door here a lot more. Although maybe you're just willing to cut it off at the group of guards.
Yeah, I only have 4 players in my second tier, and it has become conventional. I think 3 of those have sort of been in this tier for a while, and that's Wagler, Acuff, and Flemings. I've got Burries as my 4th guy in this tier. I think that is becoming more common. But as has been established on the pod, I've been there for a long time on that one. So you could definitely make the case for some other players in that tier. including some other guards who I have in the next tier. But for me, I have a 4-player second tier, and it's those 4 guards.
I don't have a specific tier cutoff, but as I've thought about this and I've tried to order players, I think, Wagler of those guards is probably my favorite.
He's my favorite to watch. And to just as an idea of a basketball player to write about, to think about.
We're talking about upside. He's got the highest upside, I think, of those
I think he's
guards.
really interesting because he's so unconventional.
Acuff is probably the best player right now in college basketball.
If you're drafting, that's one of the tricks, right? You're not trying to draft who's the best player. You're trying to draft who's going to be the best player, right?
Right. So any of these players could end up popping. You can include Flemings in there.
Yeah.
And you can even include Burries, although my only
Burries is sort of the boozer of the group, right? Where you worry about the ceiling a little bit.
That, and he's harder for me to, I guess, as
Braden Burries is the Cam Boozer of the second
he's
tier
harder
guards.
for me to envision
Yeah.
as an NBA star right now, and that's what you're looking for is all-star
Yeah.
level players.
Yeah.
That's what the Grizzlies are now in need of. But he's harder for me to envision, I think, because he plays on Arizona, and Arizona
That's part of it. That
has,
team's just so good.
That team's so good.
They have a senior point guard who's the conference player of the year.
They have so many options. He doesn't have anywhere near the usage that Wagler or Acuff or Flemings has.
He was the leading scorer on that team. That loaded team that might be the best or second best team in the country. He was the leading scorer in that team as a freshman,
I know. But I've watched, you've talked about this over and over and over again, is can he play on the ball? I have watched Wagler, Acuff, and Flemings dominate the ball on awesome college basketball teams and put up super highly efficient numbers. And Burries is doing a lot with less, but it's with less.
He is not as creative or dynamic of those guys as a ball handler or a passer. That is true. It's a very vanilla. This is why I brought up Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups was not a dynamic ball handler playmaker. It was size, it was composure, it was shooting ability and leveraging that to be a playmaker. To me, that is the upside, but that. Most players don't hit the upside,
Yeah. So I would probably, I'd probably end there with I'd probably be there with you, and cutting off the next tier. Although
would you have Burries in that group, or you would move him down?
No, I'd have him in that group.
Okay.
Although I will say,
is there anyone else you would put in that group?
I would consider putting Yaxel in that group. I know
that's a real question.
I know
right?
he's not. I know he's not. He doesn't fit necessarily what the Grizzlies would be looking for as a player that's much older.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think. Maybe they just view him as a really good player. But he's so good. He's just as good as these guys if you just watch college basketball. So
100%. He's better than most of them.
And
probably.
I've always I think I would ultimately land on not part of the tier. But Joshua Jefferson does a ton. For Iowa State, and he was really good on a team. He doesn't necessarily have some of the same tools as any of those guys.
Yeah, you're higher on him than
I like him. I think somebody's going to end up with a very good player in him at some point later on. I wouldn't take him in the top.
Do we want to do one more tier before we wrap up, which will take us through the lottery?
Let's do one more tier.
So this is where it gets more questionable, right? So right now, it's subject to change, but right now I have got 7 players in my next tier, which would take you through the end of the lottery. And they are all 3 Michigan frontcourt players, Lindeberg, Adai-Mara, and Morez Johnson. It's 2 more super talented guards that I have more questions about than the other guys, which is Mikel Brown Jr. and LeBaron Philon. And then it is a couple other vanilla big men. No pun intended. No racial pun intended. Hannes Steinbach and I can't pronounce his name, but I'm higher on this guy than most people, and I have him in this tier, is Krivas, the center for Arizona. So those are the 7 guys I have in that tier. A couple of those guys are in the second round in some mocks.
Let's just talk about some of the players you left out.
I know, yeah. Joshua Jefferson's one of them.
You left out Joshua Jefferson. So remind me, you said Mikel Brown, right?
Yep.
You did not say Nate Ament, Tennessee.
No, I have him in the next group. And he's projected top 10 in a lot of mocks.
You did not say Thomas Howe, or did you say Thomas Howe?
I don't like that guy. I have him I'm
not a fan either.
I have him in my tier 6.
And then an interesting one is Jaden Quaintance, who didn't play.
I just don't know what to do with him.
But
I have him in my 5th tier. What do I know? He may get in workouts and totally shake this whole thing up.
So, and you didn't say Braylon Mullins, who hit the shot for UConn. I don't know.
I got Mullins in the tier 4. I got Koa Pete in the tier 4. There's some tier 4 guys I could see moving up the more I get into them. Yeah.
One interesting player, Alan Graves, who I've
watched him only a little bit. I'm getting Jared Dudley, Kenrich Williams vibes, yeah. Good fourth forward. I have him in tier 6 on my board.
And Mara is interesting at Michigan. I don't think
Mara
he's
and Krivas are
tier.
Mara and Krivas are the guys I may be highest on completely relative to other stuff, because I see Mara in the second round. I got Mara in the top 10. I may be a little crazy, but I have him literally 9th on my board right now. I've got Krivas as a late lottery mid first round. Mara to me is fascinating just because there's no one else like him. Some of these guys, they're sort of similar to each other. You're trying to figure out Mikael Brown versus LeBaron Philon. You're making small distinctions. Mara is 7'3". He's a creative passer. He's a major shot blocker, rim protector. And the thing that really gets me about him, he's not a great lob threat just because he's 7'3". He adjusts to the pass. The pass will be off and he'll change his finish on it. I think there's some real, in terms of per minute impact kind of stuff. I don't think he's going to be a 30-minute guy in the NBA necessarily. But in terms of a guy who steps on the floor and is a difference maker in terms of team basketball per minute, I think he might really surprise people.
Did you have Philon in that group?
I did. And I feel like he's a guy I should probably watch more. Maybe I'm too low on him. Should he be in the second tier? He looked great in the tournament against Michigan. I watched him a bunch.
I know, but he's hard to figure out. I think what you should like about LeBaron Philon is that he has real quickness.
Yeah.
He's good on the ball. The passing numbers are excellent the last 2 seasons at Alabama.
And he can shoot.
And now he can shoot.
Yeah.
There was real year-over-year improvement.
Right. So do you believe in the shooting?
How much do you believe that? I think I do believe that, but I don't necessarily put him. I can't watch him and then watch Keaton Wagler and say, I think that LeBaron Philon has a brighter future than Keaton Wagler, right? So I don't have him in that same tier of guards, but maybe right outside of it. I might like him more than Mikael Brown, though. A player with a point guard with a back injury.
I have him one spot above Brown right now.
So
yeah.
It's that to me, he's one of the interesting players. I do like Steinbach. I think he has a chance to be a very good pro. There's nothing flashy in his game, but can he get to the NBA and grab 10 rebounds a game?
My NBA comp for him is David Lee, who David Lee wasn't flashy and didn't really shoot. I think Steinbach might shoot a little bit, but just got 20-10 and shot 58% from the floor just because he had, he hustled, he had good touch and he could rebound. And,
if that's the second first round pick for the Grizzlies, I think you'd be thrilled.
Yeah.
If a guy like that is there. And then Quaintance is the total curveball because you just don't know. But don't love how out of Florida. Braylon Mullins, not. I don't know.
I thought
Mullins, but I don't know.
To me, Mullins needs to go back for another year. And maybe that'll change now that he's hit this tournament shot. I like him a lot, but I just don't think he's ready. I think physically he really needs another year.
Yeah, and then we've actually talked on the podcast before a little bit, Christian Anderson, who's interesting, but I don't know if the Grizzlies are going to want another small. Well, he's not that small, but another guard.
I gotta think if he's not a sure first rounder, he'll probably go back to school and get a bag. And if I'm the Grizzlies, I'm not taking him with that second first round pick, and I don't think he'll be there in the second round. So I really thought much about him.
What do you think about Dalen Swain?
He's a hard one to get a hold of because he's got good size. He's actually kind of young for his class. He's not that much older than Braden Burr. He's got a good handle. He's a good athlete. The shooting numbers are better this season, but the volume is lower. And from the free throw line too. There's a question with him of he's better with the ball, but how much are you going to give him the ball in the NBA? And so what can you do without the ball? But I think he's interested. I have him near the top of that fourth tier for me, which would put him maybe right outside where that Grizzlies second pick would be, but somewhere in that late teens, early 20s range. I kind of like him.
The funny thing is we're going to talk about all these guys, and then the Grizzlies with their second pick in the first round are going to come out of nowhere and take.
They're going to take Kareem Lopez, who I've seen 10 minutes of on YouTube.
They're going to take Kareem Lopez or Abuka Okori out of Stanford, or they're going to go for one of the players that the Jake LaRavia pick that you didn't see coming, the Santi Aldama pick that you didn't see
David
coming.
Roddy.
Yeah, David Roddy.
Well, let's hope not. No offense to David.
All those guys, high impact college basketball players. They may end up doing that. And some of these guys, later on down the list are exactly that. The JT Toppins, Flory Badunga, Mara, like those guys. I would not be shocked at all if the Grizzlies did not follow the conventional big boards here as you look across the NBA and take someone that you wouldn't expect. Well, I think that's a good start. We're going to have a lot of time to talk draft between now and June. So, and even into May when we get to the combine, which I think we're both planning on being at the combine this year. Hopefully that all works out.
We're looking into that. And we got to nail down our boards, man. We got to go through number by number.
Out. Let's we can start that as soon as this regular season comes to a close. We have just a couple more weeks left to go, and then it is officially NBA draft time. Forget the NBA playoffs. It's NBA draft season.
I will tune back in more to NBA stuff, frankly, once the tournament's over. I've been watching so much college basketball, and now there won't be any more to watch after this weekend.
It's a fun Final Four. So
it's a great Final Four. I mean, these top 4 guys we talked about are not there after Boozer lost, but every team in that in the tournament has multiple pro prospects, if not for this draft, and mostly for this draft, but it's certainly just going forward. Because you're going to get all these future picks, you might as well be scouting David Merkovich and whoever too,
Yeah. We did talk about our Final Four picks on the last podcast.
I'm pretty sure that if Arizona beats Michigan, I will win the Daily Memphian office pool.
Do you want to know something crazy? So I read I did not participate in the Daily Memphian office pool.
You're too good for us?
What was I thinking?
Yeah, what are you thinking?
I have a baby at home and I forgot. But my wife, I did one with my friends, and my wife had an office pool, and she came to me with the iPad and said, "Can you fill this bracket out?"
Right.
And so I filled. That was on a different app, so I wasn't using the same ones. And in that bracket, I had Arizona over Illinois in the national championship
That
game.
is what I have.
And now I'm in the exact same position as you.
There we
in
go.
My wife's office pool. I need Arizona to beat Michigan, and we win the pool.
That's
so
right.
we both will be big Arizona fans.
We will be Wildcats on Saturday.
So that will be fun. There's more to life than basketball. Anything you did this week, Chris?
I've been working, man. I've been writing a whole bunch. The Zach Kleiman evaluation series that's out, people can read. And then the Grizzlies 25 is winding up. I did one on Mike Conley today, number 3. But I haven't done all that much interesting. I'm just trying to plow my way through this Game of Thrones book. I'm on like page 700, the 3rd one. I was hoping to get it finished before I came here, and I just didn't have time. You know what I think I'm going to do tomorrow? Hopefully no one who's connected to the Daily Memphian will listen to this and alter my plans. I got a lot of work to do, but I had nowhere in particular I need to be or to do it. I think I'm going to get out of town and go to Oxford just for the day and work in a coffee shop all morning, and then get lunch and knock around the square and go to the bookstore and record store, and then go back to another coffee shop and work in the afternoon. I'm looking to get out of town. I think I'm going to go take a little mini day trip to Oxford tomorrow. When was the last time you were in Oxford?
The last time I was in Oxford was for a Kentucky Ole Miss football game. That was Will Levis at Kentucky. He fumbled on like the 20-yard line, and Ole Miss won the game at the end. And the funny thing is, so my parents went to UK, and so my dad was all excited to go check out the Grove, and they live in Florida, and they got hit by a hurricane the week of the game, and he was not able to come up. So I took my friend at the time, who was living here at the time, and we went down there and had a big day and just watched college football that we really didn't care about in terms of the result of the game. So that was fun.
Here's the funny thing. Maybe this was a long time ago, before I had kids, actually, so it was a really long time ago. But my wife and I used to go to Oxford, occasionally, because we really liked it, just knocking around down there. We went one day just to knock around. And we were like, why is no one here? Why is the square deserted? It was a football game day. We had no idea it was a football game day. We were just there to like go to the bookstore and like get lunch.
We'll get you into college football eventually, Chris.
I got too much else on my plate.
Well, we'll get you into it eventually. I didn't do anything. I've been doing nothing. I've been hanging out at home and doing Grizzly stuff. I just finished a story this morning. I'll do a quick shameless plug about a guy. I know there's a lot of people, like it's become really popular, like collecting sports cards. It made like a big resurgence during COVID, and now it's like the hobby or whatever. I know, shout out to John Roser, who's a big collector over with Grind City. And so when you go to these Grizzlies games now, like it's kind of funny to see how many people have like the sports cards like in hand in the tunnels before the games during warmups. And I met a guy he's a keynote speaker for like educational conferences, and he's a former principal and math teacher who collects cards. And he's got probably the biggest Jordan Poole collection in the world, just totally randomly. But he also has this big social media following for his cards, and he gives back rookie cards to the actual players. And so I had the chance to talk to a couple players, and one being Gigi Jackson, who he's just gifted stuff to. And like, it's like a chance for, he basically said, he watches all the fans ask for stuff all the time. And he figured, you know what, the players might think it'd be nice to have the inverse for once. Right. And so he goes and he finds these players like best trading cards, and he gives them back to the players. And so that was a fun little story to write, and you can go check that out over at the Daily Memphian. Make sure you go read Chris's series on Zach Kleiman. Grizzlies 25 is finishing up now, right?
We're the number 3 is this week, so we got 2 more. Yep.
Yeah, it was Mike Conley, the most recent.
Mike Conley.
So go check that out as well. And go read all our other stuff over at the Daily Memphian. I know Sam Hardiman had updates on, I guess, the behind the scenes moving pieces during the Grizzlies lease negotiations, and one minor thing that might have signaled a little bit of movement on that. So go read that as well. Okay, that'll do it for us this week. We appreciate you listening. For Drew and for Chris, we're out of here.